Alrighty, so the penultimate weekend of the MLS action is in the books, and while we still have two more games that is going to happening in the middle of the week before Decision Day 2022, one thing for sure is that we now know how the Western Conference standing is going to look like heading into Decision Day. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. It's going to be a wild decision day in the Western Conference, and it could still be a wild decision day in the Eastern Conference too, and combined to be probably the wildest decision day we have ever had in MLS history. Because when you look at the Western Conference standings heading into decision day, it is still wide open. Like there is four teams that is fighting for two playoff position. There's even teams that is currently above the red line that is fighting for that fourth position. And the reason why that fourth position is important is because that's the last spot to host a home playoff game. And it's also important for some of these teams to host home playoff game because historically the stats have shown that if you play a home playoff game compared to if you have to go on the road to travel on a playoff game, you have a better chance in terms of winning that. So yeah, it's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see how it's going to be, especially I'm actually attending one of those games that's going to be happening on Sunday. But for now, we're actually just going to talk about the Sunday games and the four games that conclude the penultimate weekend of the MLS action before I'll basically talk about the Saturday game. Not tomorrow, but probably on Tuesday because tomorrow I am going to be a little bit busy and I have something to do in the evening. But I promise you, I'm going to definitely talk about all these games and kind of maybe just break down in terms of the scenarios that we are going to heading into Decision Day 2022. But let us actually begin with the first game, and in the first game is NYCFC versus Orlando City. And while in this video I'll talk a lot about the Western Conference standing because that is being set. I'll also talk about the Eastern Conference standing in a way that I know there's still those two games that's going to be happening in the middle of the week, but there's definitely some teams that are going to be happy that they don't have to worry about anything because they clinched their playoff position. And one of those teams is NYCFC clinching their playoff position with a win against Orlando City. And then there's also some teams that not only have not clinched their playoff position, but now they do face a bit of a daunting task. And that's kind of the case for Orlando City, where now it seems like, they're still in a good position. But man, these next two games is going to be interesting, especially that midweek game against Inter Miami on the road. I mean, you talk about a game that maybe is an appetizer and maybe kind of like a preview of what we're going to see in Decision Day 2022. That game is basically going to be the case, not just because of rivalry's sake, because there's just so much at stake with both of these teams in the playoff bubble right now. But yeah, this loss definitely hurts, and in a way, they look like they were going to get a win in this one. I mean, at least early on, they actually played relatively well. I thought they were on the front foot early in this one. Juan had a shot that was deflected and goes wide before Moreno would heads it wide from the corner. Then Magno had the first opportunity for NYCFC, but he puts that one wide. But then in the 12th minute, looked like NYCFC got the opening goal as Tavon Gray puts it in the back of the net. But the problem is, the goal was allowed for offside, and I believe this was called offside because Rodriguez interfered with this header from Gray, and Rodriguez was in an offside position. Now, I know the NYCFC TV feed, I mean, they couldn't believe that of course is the case. I don't think they realize that, there's that rule where, just because you don't touch the ball, it doesn't matter. Like, if you are interfering in a position to basically redirect in and you're in an offside position, whether you touch it or not, it's going to be called offside. We've seen it so many times this season, and it's kind of mind-boggling. Some of these TV broadcasters still don't understand it. And speaking of TV broadcaster, I'll definitely do a video sometime maybe this week talk about all the regional broadcasts, and knowing the fact that this is pretty much the last game for some if not all of these local broadcasters. I want to give them some appreciation and kind of just give me my honest opinion about each of these broadcasters and how well they do, because as a guy that have watched a lot of MLS game and trying to watch as much MLS soccer as possible, I have watched different feeds, and I definitely have some honest opinion in terms of some of the ones that I feel were good and some that are just clearly bad and have that homerism. But yeah, that I think, again, like I said, I think that was correctly called. But Magno did have a chance chance again in the 24th minute, but he hits it wide from close range. And then this game kind of become tight. I mean, neither team really kind of created many chances after it was kind of open for the first 24 minutes. Torres had a chance right before halftime, but he hits the side netting from close range. And we head to halftime with the score being between both of these teams. But it won't be scoreless for long heading into the second half, because Facundo Torres would be on target here as he scored from Cara and Araujo to make it 1-0 in favor of Orlando City. Pereira trying to make it get 1-1 as he tried to respond quickly for NYCFC, but he blasts that high from long range. And again, it was a fast start in the second half for both of these teams, just like in the first half, where there was definitely some decent chances. Cara would then puts it wide from long range before Park would hit one that actually was spilled by Galese, and this one actually was hit right to Callens, who just could not punish the Orlando goalkeeper. So that was definitely a moment Galese definitely don't want to look back, and certainly a moment that he's very fortunate that did not go in, because if that one went in, yeah, that would not be a great moment for Galese, allowing a juicy rebound right into the path of Callens, who could not punish the Orlando goalkeeper. Galese then denied Rodriguez, but again, he kind of allowed a bit of a rebound, and he goes right back to Rodriguez, who had a second crack of it, but he couldn't bury it. But then in the 66th minute, after all the pressure NYCFC was putting, they find the equalizer. It's Alexander Callens scoring from Magno to tie the game up at 1 apiece, because of course Alexander Callens is going to score a goal. He's a guy that is always known to score some big goals, which is kind of interesting, because as a center back, you don't usually see your defender being the one that scores some crucial goal, but he's been having a knack of doing it in these last couple of games. And yeah, he ties the game up at 1 apiece, though I think that was not great defending from Orlando. Like, they didn't really clear their lines very, very well, and as a result, they paid the price because of it. But then 14 minutes later, NYCFC would take the lead, and it's Talles Magno that scored from Pereira and Morales, and I definitely feel like Magno deserved this goal, and deserved the winner too, because I thought he played very well in this one. You can clearly see he is trying very hard in this game, and trying to show why NYCFC pay a hefty amount to recruit him. And yeah, a great game for him, getting a goal and an assist, and I think he was also the man of the match in this one. And he had a chance to score a second one if it wasn't for Galese denying him there, though O2 did had a chance to put it away on the rebound, but he puts that one high again. Galese was allowing a lot of rebound in this one, kind of very uncharacteristic of him. But there was no doubt momentum was all with NYCFC. They were looking for a third goal to kill this game off, and even though they didn't get that third goal, they were able to win 2-1 in this one, and like I said, clinch a playoff position because of it. As the shots in this one, dead even at 13 shots apiece. 5 shots on goal for the 1 that Orlando City had. 6 shots off target for the 5 that NYCFC had. 6 shots that was blocked for the 3 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Orlando has in this game. And again, for Orlando, even though they technically still control their playoff destiny, they have some daunting game coming up, because again, in that game against Inter Miami, which I think that could maybe be a game that could decide their playoff fate, because, if Orlando lose that one, and if Columbus, of course, win that one, and of course we know if Inter Miami beat them, then all of a sudden they find themselves outside of the playoff picture. That's how quick it can change in terms of how you can be right in the midst of it, and you look like you were safe in the playoff position in 6 plays, and all of a sudden you drop yourself down to 8th place. And again, you definitely hear something similar of what I'm going to be saying when I do the preview on Saturday, or do the preview on Tuesday of the Saturday day games, because again, both conferences are just so tight right now in the playoff race, and that's why I said before, this is probably going to be the best decision that we ever will have, and we'll have some of the most craziest scenarios that's going to happen in this decision day 2022. But that being said, moving on, in the next match is the Portland Timbers versus the LAFC, and I want to first congratulate LAFC of winning Supporters Shield 2022, and also kind of give my condolence to our LAFC at the same time. The fact that now they're basically on the cusp of maybe suffering the Supporters Shield curse. I mean, I'm not gonna say too much about the Supporters Shield curse, because of course it exists, and I made a video about it before, but I think for now LAFC will enjoy it because that's another silverware that they of course won, and they had to kind of work for it in this one because for the Portland Timbers, I didn't think they played a bad game in this one, but the problem is they basically decided to go classic Portland Timbers in this game, and that of course find ways to break their fans' heart of giving up late goal like they did a couple of years ago. Though early on, Asprilla did hit it just high from close range before Ivicic denied Boanga from close range, as it was a fast start to this game. Again, both of these teams, there's definitely some playoff implication and Supporter Shield implication. LAFC with a win will clinch Supporter Shield, and a win for the Timbers will also clinch their playoff position. Paredes then blasts one wide from long range, and again, both teams seems like they were very strong going through the build-up, but as the game kind of goes on, I thought the final third started to become a problem. It really left a lot to desire where neither of these teams were finding that crucial final ball. Though in the 33rd minute, this was almost a big mistake by Ivicic. I mean, Ivicic has been big for the Timbers this season, but man, this would not be a great moment for him. He basically came off his lines there, and when you come off your line as a goalkeeper, you have to get the ball, because if you don't get the ball, oh boy, you're basically find yourself in no man's land, and that's exactly what happened in this case for Ivicic. He didn't get the ball as he comes off the line, and Vela was right there to try to take advantage of it, and he probably would have scored if one of the Timbers players didn't just block that one off the line there. But in the first minute of stoppage time, Ivicic did deny Acosta as he's trying to chip over him from a tight angle before there was a shout for a penalty for LAFC that was not given right on the doorstep of halftime. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Crépeau would deny Nycfc, as that was really the first time that Crépeau was tested in this. I mean, despite the fact that the Timbers had some good chances in the first half, they didn't really put one on target, or at least trying to make Crépeau make a save there until Nycfc, of course make that shot that has to force Crépeau to make a save. But in the 51st minute, it'll be LAFC that gets the opening goal, and who else but Carlos Vela scoring from Acosta to give LAFC a 1-0 lead. And yeah, that was just a Vela special. Like, we know Carlos Vela, even though I know he's not the player that we know back in 2019 when he had that MVP year, he's still a guy that can create something out of magic. And also, this is another reminder that you simply cannot allow Carlos Vela to have half an inch of space, especially when he gets the ball onto his left foot, because his left foot, when he basically hits that one, there's just something about that most likely it's going to be ends up in the back of the net, no matter how far the range is. And even though this was kind of far away, Vela with that left foot just curled this one so beautifully. I mean, Ivicic did kind of get a touch to it, but yeah, no goalkeeper in the world was going to save it. It was a Vela's special, and what a goal that was from the LAFC captain. And just like that, LAFC were leading 1-0 in this one. It could have been 2-0 if Opoku could put the chances away in the 53rd minute, but he missed wide from close range. Zuberic then heads it to the roof of the net before Moreno with a big chance from about 8 yards out, but he didn't really put enough power into it and hit straight to Crépeau. But I thought it was a great response for the Timbers. Like, they were trying to push to get the equalizer. Remember, a loss in this one will definitely not help their cases in terms of making the playoffs, which I'll of course talk about a little bit about after I finish talk about the remaining notes of this game. But in the 71st minute, they came so close off the equalizer if it wasn't for the post denying Bravo on the header. Then on the other end, Ivicic had to deny Arango from close range. I thought it was a quiet game for Chicho Arango, which, that's kind of a rarity because Chicho Arango always tends to be on the headlines, especially in terms of scoring. But I think throughout the time I wrote these notes down, I think I've only mentioned Arango once, which that's got to be credit to that Timbers back line, where they really kind of kept him quiet for most of this game. But I also thought the game kind of become end to end, and I thought this is also where the game not only become end to end, but this is where we're just getting started, because this is when this game just had some MLS After Dark energy. And I know this game wasn't taking place at night, but honestly, nowadays with how chaotic the league is, we might as well call any game that has MLS After Dark energy, because it kind of started with Crépeau denying Bravo from long range in the 74th minute, and in the 81st minute, the Timbers equalize. And guess who? It's Darren Asprilla scoring from Bravo and Tuolumne. Just a reminder, it is October 2nd, so you know that as the calendar month turned to October, you know Darren Asprilla is going to score because, you know, there's that general rule that he's not allowed to score some big goals unless it is October, and he's done it again. What a great header that was. And even though it was a great header from Asprilla, that was some bad defending from LAFC, especially on the part of Morelos and Segura, and kind of a rarity too, because both of these players has been very good and have been a rock in that LAFC defense. But here, they just completely switched off and let Asprilla kind of had a free header there. And when you let Darren Asprilla had a free header, yeah, you're going to be punished most of the time, and they were. So the game was tied up at 1 apiece, but that equalizer was looking to be short-lived because in the 88th minute, it looked like it was going to be a penalty that was called for LAFC after they go to VAR to see whether or not did Bravo foul Opoku in the box. And in the end, they go to VAR to see whether that's the case, and it wasn't. And I think in the end, it was the right call because, again, I feel like Opoku kind of embellished it a little bit in that, you know, yes, there was contact, but when you kind of embellish a little bit and gone down easily, maybe the referee is not going to give it. And not to mention the fact that they took a long time to look at this. Like, I think as the replay continue, I think Taylor Twell mentioned they took way too long to look at this, so it can't be clear and obvious. And in the end, it was the case where, again, you know, that, and I think during that VAR replay, I was also kind of getting a little nervous too because of the fact that, again, we talk about the inconsistency of VAR in MLS for the past couple of years, and I thought, are they going to once again do it? Especially now we're getting to the time where you cannot have bad VAR decision that could really change the story of the playoff picture. But fortunately, in this case, I think they got it right in the end, and that, again, it wasn't clear and obvious, and then they stick to their original decision. Though Ivicic did deny Tello and just about smother the rebound there in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. But then in the 5th minute of stoppage time, LAFC took the lead again. And guess who? It's actually Dennis Bouanga that scored from Palacio to make it 2-1 in favor of LAFC. That's Bouanga's first career MLS goal, and he deserved it because he's been trying very hard to score, and he's been kind of unlucky for the past couple of games. But what a way to score your first career MLS goal in a goal that pretty much is a supporter shield clinching goal there. I mean, even though I know there was still a couple of minutes left, it looked like LAFC won that game, and indeed they did. As in the end, they were able to win 2-1 in this one. As the shots in this one, 19 shots compared to 9 that LAFC had, 7 shots on goal compared to 8 that LAFC had, 3 shots off target compared to 6 that LAFC had, 2 shots that was block compared to 1 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that LAFC has in this game. And like I said, congratulations to LAFC winning the supporter shield for the 2nd time in 4 seasons, but also my commiseration to LAFC of potentially become the latest victim of the supporter shield curse. But, you know, overall, they'll be happy with this result, especially, you know, things haven't really been going well for this team, especially when you look at the past couple of games that they had. But, you know, getting a win like this will definitely help their cases in terms of showing up in big games, because you could argue this was a big game too against a Western Conference rival and have to go on the road, and that's been kind of something that LAFC has always been criticized in terms of them not showing up in big games and not pulling it through in these big games like that. But for the Portland Timbers, yeah, this is a devastating loss. And again, now they're heading into that game against RSL, which I'm assuming that game has got to be on national television. Like, that is a game that is very similar to what happened in 2019 when the Timbers play against the Quakes, and how I think the Timbers were in 6th and the Quakes were in 8th, and that whoever wins that one gets to make it to the playoffs. Whoever loses gets eliminated, and it feels like we're in the same scenario again. But unfortunately, while the Timbers got the luxury of playing at home in that winner-take-all kind of game on decision day against the Quakes, they don't get the luxury this time. They have to go on the road to play against RSL, which the good news is they did beat RSL last season in a game that is similar to that, but you know that it's not going to be tough, and especially after this result. I mean, this got to be a devastating result. If they got a point out of this one, I think it would have been okay, but to lose this one and now have to go on the road and have your playoff fate to be decided, yeah, this is going to be very interesting. And also, it's going to be interesting to see if the Timbers does get eliminated in in that final day, then we could be seeing a scenario where this could be the first time in what I think it's been a long time. I remember this. It must be at least 10 years that no Cascadia team, or at least no team named Seattle or Portland, made it to the playoffs. And the reason why that is the case is because the next game on top out is Sporting KC and the Seattle Sounders. And yep, for the first time in franchise history, the Seattle Sounders is not making the playoffs this season and are eliminated from playoff contention. Now, obviously, I know Sounders fans are not going to be surprised because the writing was on the wall for the past couple of weeks. And you can maybe even argue the writings was on the wall even going back to when they won CCL and doing in the middle of the season when they were doing badly. And also, it's just another reminder of the challenge with MLS team being in CCL and how, it's almost like you're basically picking your poison, which, or I would say, actually I wouldn't say picking your poison as the right word, but more like just choosing which competition you want to focus more, and you have to kind of punt the other competition, because we've seen so many times in the past couple of years whenever MLS team make a deep run to CCL, and eventually, the Sounders, of course, being the first team to win the competition and able to overcome the mountain that MLS team have not been able to do so prior to this season. You just feel like, yeah, it seems like that means that, they need to do a lot in terms of league play, because CCL is very demanding. And at the end, I think when you watch how the Sounders play in this one, you can see they were just mentally and physically just burned out in this one. Now, in the first half, Sherry would hit one straight to Fry, as I thought Sporting KC had most of the possession early, while the Sounders, in a must-win game, they kind of elected to sit back a little bit, trying to go on the counter. Fry denied Tommy from long range before he denied Agata, but Russell gets a second crack of it, but was crucially blocked by Nuhu. By the way, Stephen Fry, what a game he had in this one. Like, he was determined that he was not going to be letting the Sounders getting eliminated in this one. He was making all the big save to keep this team in this game as long as possible. But really, in a must-win game, this has not been a great start for the Sounders. Like, they were outshot 5-0 in the first 20 minutes and were outpossessed 63-37. The first opportunity didn't came until the 25th minute when Rodon had a tap in the empty net, and I think kind of was a little bit too casual with this one because he didn't put a lot of power, which, Sweat was able to block that one off the line. Before Fry with another incredible double save, robbing Agata twice. I mean, the fingertip save that he made, I think Stu Holden mentioned it was similar to the one that he made with the header that Josie Alther did back in the 2016 MLS Cup. And yeah, there was some similarity because, that was just a fingertip save there from Fry. But even to get himself back up and make another save on the rebound, yeah, like I said, Fry, he was single-handedly keeping the Sounders team in this game. And the scoreline should not be at 0-0 if Stephen Fry wasn't just going to go full Manuel Neuer and full ter Stegen at the same time, or just not want to allow a single goal in this one. Tommy then drilled one that goes straight to Fry from long range before Ladero with a rare opportunity for the Sounders, but he puts it wide from long range, and he actually didn't miss that much. But I think after they kind of soaked some pressure off, I thought the Sounders started to kind of get into this one, and they started to kind of get themselves back into the game. It turns out that was kind of a mirage, because eventually in the 41st minute, Sporting KC broke through, and it's William Agata scoring from Showery and Voltaire to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC. And I believe I haven't made a moving forward series about Sporting KC. I'm definitely will, because I think they're next on my list in terms of the moving forward series. But I'll definitely talk about how if there's any team that is going to be eliminated from playoff contention and not make the playoffs in the Western Conference that has the best chance of making it the next year, it's Sporting KC. I mean, and it's not even close, because when you look at how this team have performing down the stretch and how the signing of both Agata and Tommy has really changed this team, and not to mention they're going to get Polito back next year and potentially Gotti Quinta too. You got to say that this is definitely a team that could get themselves back to being the best in the Western Conference, and the run that they've been in down the stretch definitely backs that up too. But yeah, that of course gives Sporting KC a 1-0 lead, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Russell would pose it just wide from long range, and once again, in a must-win situation, the Sounders, they kind of came out the second half flat again, but they kind of might have heard what I wrote, because they immediately started to create some chances. Montero actually went through on goal, but he missed that one wide. There was a shout for a penalty for Sporting KC that was not given before Morris had a free header in the 56th minute, but he hits that one wide from close range. And again, the chances were finally coming for the Sounders, but you just feel like with these missed chances that they were getting, and not to mention they weren't still getting tons of chances in this one, it's going to come back to bite them. Though it looked like they had a chance to get a penalty in the 61st minute, when originally the referee go to VAR to see whether or not if Voltaire did foul Montero in the box, and in the end, VAR said that is not the case. And again, I think that was the right call, because similar to the one that I talked about with Bravo potentially fouling Poku in the box, there was really not much contact, and in many ways, I think Montero might have gone down on the ground way too easily, and that I would think that would have been an incredibly soft penalty to give. But yeah, they didn't give it there. This game remains at 1-0, and I also thought that this game kind of started this game could potentially open up, because Seattle was going to throw man for it. Like, it's all or nothing now for this Sounders team, because if they don't get a win in this one and get 2 goals, they're going to be eliminated from the playoffs. Montero then puts one wide from a tight angle in the 63rd minute before postgame had to tip Montero shots over. I mean, Montero was having a lot of chances in this one, and knowing the fact that Freddie Montero have always come big for the Sounders doing this year, I thought he was going to get on the score sheet, but unfortunately he never did. Though in the 73rd minute, Agata looked like he was going to put the dagger in the Sounders' playoff chances, but Fry was able to rob him from point-blank range. And really, as the time winds down, you just kind of sense that the Sounders, they look like they gave up. Like, the white flag seems to wave when they decide to bring on some of their youth players. I think they bring on Intencio and Double Air in this one for Rodon and Morris, and that was a sign where I think the Sounders knew they were not going to do it. Like, they just completely run out of gas in this one. Sherry then of course tried to do the mercy kill, trying to end the Sounders' hope at that point, but he puts that one wide before a Double Air did trying to make this interesting, trying to get the equalizer for the Sounders, but that one was blocked off the line by Sweat. And yeah, in the end, Sporting KC with a 1-0 win over the Seattle Sounders. And yeah, that's another victim that Sporting KC have collected of the numerous teams that they have been used to spoil their chances of making the playoffs, or in this case, eliminating them. Like, I swear, Sporting KC, they love to play the spoiler role this season. They've been the king in terms of that, and yeah, they did they did. I mean, I wouldn't say unthinkable, because I knew coming into this game, Seattle, yes, their playoff line was definitely on life support, but with the way that how mentally exhausted that they've been in, and they just have looked very unlike Sounders for so long doing this last couple of months. Looks like the writing was on the wall, and indeed the writing was on the wall, and that they of course missed the playoffs for the first time in their club history, and the longest active streak right now in terms of teams that have consecutively made the playoffs at 14 years. And also that means now the New York Red Bulls owns that title, which is kind of interesting to see it, because I know Red Bulls fan, as much as they'll be happy that they get the honor now, they know that they don't really care with the way that, at least for the Sounders, they will say, well, the streak ends, but at least it was a good run doing that streak, and it resort in a couple of MLS Cup. That cannot be said the same for Red Bulls fans. But in terms of shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 10 that the Sounders had. 1 shot compared to 11 shots on goal. Yeah, Stephen Fry was a busy man in this one. 2 shots off target compared to 6 that the Sounders had. Both teams had 3 shots of block, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the Seattle Sounders has in this game. And that it's going to be interesting when I talk about the Seattle Sounders in the Moving Forward series episode, because, I mean, if you're a Sounders fan, I don't know how you feel about this season. I mean, on one hand, yes, they are eliminated from the playoffs, and that it's unfortunate that is the case. But, as the old saying goes, all streak has to eventually come to an end, and it did eventually come to an end this year, especially with the numerous injuries that they've been dealing with. And not to mention, they did become the first team to win CCL, and that they still did something that no MLS team has ever done, and finally carry the flag of MLS and really have put the league on the map of winning the first continental title that pretty much me and every MLS nerds have been hoping that day would come. So it's kind of a mixed reaction in terms of how the Sounders season has ended, but I'll definitely talk a little bit more about when I do a moving forward series talking about them. But one thing for sure, as I mentioned with the moving forward series for Sporting KC, this team has shown a lot of promise. And I know I've seen before teams have great runs in the latter part of the second half of the season when they're eliminated, and it's not easy for them to replicate it in the very next season. I think this might not be the case. I think this might be the case that Sporting KC could replicate that and use the incredible run that they had in the second half of the season and carry it into next year, because they definitely have the players to do it when you look at it. And I think if they maybe just add a little more defensive help and also maybe add some more depth, this team can definitely be a Western Conference playoff contender again, and maybe even an MLS Cup contender heading into next season. But that being said, moving on, in the last game on this board is Nashville and the Houston Dynamo. So this is kind of an interesting one, because depending on how you look at it, you would say either this is a result that, has to frustrate Nashville fans because, once again, the struggle at Geodis Park continued with them losing this one against the Houston Dynamo. Or you could say that maybe in a more kind of 4D chess kind of perspective, that Nashville fans won't mind that they lost in this one, because not only the fact that they, before they even kick off in this game, they knew that they clinch a playoff position after Seattle was eliminated, but also the fact that, well, we've been playing poorly at Geodis Park all season long, so, if we're going to be heading to the playoffs, isn't it better for us to just play on the road instead of playing at home? Because if that's the case, then I think this is a great 4D chess move that Gary Smith made. The fact that, hey, if we lose this game, now that we're back down to 5th, and now we're down to a spot where we have to play on the road in the first round of playoffs, we won't mind, because, again, we've been a very good road team, and, again, the style that Nashville play, it clearly fits better on the road, and it's hence why this team has a great road win. Though I will say that in this performance, I know Gary Smith won't admit the fact that he's trying to lose this game on purpose, and that really the story in this game for Nashville, they just couldn't finish. In the first half, it was really a quiet start in this one, as there was no shots through the first 13 minutes. In fact, there was no shots through the first 21 minutes, as the first shot came in the 21st minute after Mukhtar just couldn't flick it in from close range. Mukhtar was involved in this game, but again, Hani Mukhtar, with him feels like he's scoring every single game. It was kind of a little bit uncharacteristic that he wasn't on target in this one. And the same goes with Randall Leao, as he puts it wide from close range in the 22nd minute. And again, Nashville, they were starting to get into the gear after, again, the first 20 minutes, it was kind of a boring snooze fest kind of a game, but you were expecting Nashville started to get into the gear and was really started to put some pressure on Houston. Clark then in the 25th minute almost made a huge mistake here, and this was probably the best moment for Mukhtar to score a goal, because Clark basically came off his lines. He basically heads it straight into the path of Mukhtar, and with the quality that Mukhtar has had and the MVP level that he potentially is going to win this year, you would think he would chip that one over and it goes into the back of the net, but so unlucky here, hitting the post here as he was trying to chip Clark. I'm pretty sure half of the stadium was thinking that was going to go into the back net, and heck, even I was thinking that was going to go in the net, but it didn't. And if that one did go into the back net, there was definitely a case that maybe would have been chopped off either, because on the same sequence of play, a penalty was given to the Houston Dynamo after VAR deemed that Zimmerman brought down Bear in the box instead of a handball that we thought he was penalized. And the reason why I want to mention it is that at first we thought it was a handball that was called on Zimmerman, and that's why that this, of course, was a penalty. And even when I was focusing on it, I thought maybe it was the handball, which, if that was the case, yeah, I think that was a harsh call for against Nashville, because, again, it definitely didn't look like Zimmerman's hand was that outstretched when it hits it, and it also, I don't think it was kind of clear and obvious when that one hits his hand. But in the end, it seems like they were actually looking to see whether or not if Zimmerman actually clipped Bear in the box, which when I also look at it the second time, and when they did talk about this about 10 minutes after this event happened and show another replay of it, I of course focused to see whether or not if indeed Zimmerman did clip Bear in the box and concede a penalty, and the answer is yeah, he did. He definitely clipped him with the left leg, and that, yeah, rightfully so. That of course was giving a penalty, and I think that in the end it was a great job for that Nashville TV feed to explain that, because again, if that was a handball, then again I'll once again talk about how this is another example of why VAR usage in MLS has been so inconsistent, and this is also a moment I just don't like to see that can really change the playoff implication, especially with the way that this game ended with the Dynamo getting a 1-goal win. But in the end, when you look back at the one that they were actually looking at, it was the correct decision. But before the penalty was taken, we had a situation, and they didn't show this on TV, but they kind of mentioned that both Quintero and Pico, they were fighting to see who was going to take the penalty, and in fact, it got so bad that Pico actually shoved Quintero down in the box, and that was kind of ugly to see. And again, they didn't show it on the TV feed, but I think the Nashville TV feed was mentioning that, and there was definitely a hint that of course that did happen, and that was kind of a bit of an ugly scene, but also a scene that I was thinking, oh boy, Houston is going to miss this penalty, because we've seen this before where when you have teammates are fighting over for who's going to take the penalty, usually that result in the penalty that is being missed. But fortunately for Houston, that was not the case. In fact, neither of those players actually won the rights to take the penalty. Instead, it was actually Seba Ferreira, the one that took the penalty, and he basically smashed that one on the right side. Willis actually gone the wrong way in this penalty attempt to save it. But that gives Houston a 1-0 lead. Could have been 2-0 if Carrasquilla didn't just put this one wide from 18 yards out, and the momentum was definitely with Houston. I mean, for a bit, it looked like Nashville was going to get the lead, but really kind of against the run of play, Houston got the opening goal, and now the momentum was with them, and Geodis Park was definitely in stunned silence. I mean, it was in party atmosphere in the beginning, because I think it's partially the celebration of them clinching the playoffs, but also getting ready to potentially have home field advantage in the playoffs too. But that doesn't seem like that's the case with the way that Houston were leading 1-0. Sapon then puts it high from close range. I mean, I mentioned before, CJ Sapon, him along with Kevin Cabral has to be the most cursed striker and the most snake-bitten striker in the league right now. And it's just showing it like every single game. I really felt bad for him, because every single game he's trying his best to put the ball into the back of the net. But when you're a number 9 and you basically have been really struggling to put the ball in the back of the net, and you can't do it in a long stretch of period, unless you finally score, you're not going to end your streak. And I think that's kind of the funk that CJ Sapon is going through right now. But I know one player that is not going through that funk right now, and that player is Seba Ferreira, who, of course, after scoring the penalty earlier, he would score again in the 39th minute, as he scored here from Quintero to make it 2-0 in favor of the Dynamo. And again, it was kind of against the run of play too, because I thought Nashville started getting the momentum again to try to get the equalizer. Next one, Houston, of course, got the second goal, and Nashville was 2-0 down heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Leal did pulls it wide from close range before Moore blasted wide from long range. Pico then fires it wide from close range, as chances definitely was not a problem in the second half. Like, as I mentioned, for the part of the first half, it was definitely at a premium, but not the case in the second half, because it was definitely popping with the chances that both of these teams was getting. Vieira actually went through on goal in the 62nd minute and had a chance to put the dagger in this one, but he was denied by the former Dynamo keeper Willis on a 1v1 situation. Schaffelberg then hits one straight to Clark, as I thought the game kind of opened up, because this happened right after when Willis made a big save to keep this one at 2-0. Though, as the game goes along, I thought Nashville continued to press to get that one back, and Houston was kind of trying to sit back and trying to hold on to this 2-0 lead. Bunbury would hit it wide from close range before Bunbury would hit one right to Willis. Sapon then went through on goal, but Clark just came off his lines to smother that one. before Hawkinson had a chance in the second minute of stoppage time, but he puts that one wide, which just kind of sums up the finishing for Nashville. They were just not being clinical whatsoever in this one. And then there was a bit of a temperance flare that was happening after Teenage Hadabi put a very high boot on Hawkinson. In fact, Hadabi actually suffered the worst out of this injury, and he actually also got a red card too because of it, because, you know, he was the one that basically puts the high boot, and he also couldn't put any weight on that boot that he basically connects to Hawkinson, which, yeah, that probably is not a good sign, especially with the way that he kind of had to be helped carry off. But, you know, what also sucks is that fact that you got to help to be carried off, and then you of course get a sending off too. Or maybe, depending on the other way you look at, you're probably going to be subbed out either way. So I guess even a red card doesn't matter. It's just you're going to be subbed off either way, because it was pretty clear that Hadabi was not going to continue after that. But yeah, that was a really dangerous play that he did there, and that, again, let's just hope that he didn't really injure himself, and that, no, it's just one of those unfortunate situations, but also maybe a fortunate situation that, Hawkinson himself didn't get injured, because usually when a player high boots someone, it's usually the player that suffered the foul that gets the worst of the injury. But this was one of the rare cases that it's actually the other way around. But that being said, Houston was down to 10 men, and Nashville wastes no time to capitalize as Zimmerman would score from Lovitz. And anytime Zimmerman gets on the score sheet, you know it's come from a set piece, and it is. It's a classic Zimmerman header from the corner to make it 2-1 in favor of Nashville, but it was pretty much too little, too late in this one, as the Dynamo able to hold on to win 2-1 in this game. Shots in this one, 21 shots compared to 9 that Houston had. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 10 shots off target with the 2 that Houston has, 8 shots that was blocked with the 4 that Houston has. And possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that the Dynamo has in this game. And like I said, for Nashville, it's interesting to see how they are kind of almost playing 4D chess move that, they purposely, they don't want that to have that home playoff game. They'll feel much more comfortable if they're going to be playing road games from now on, and at least in this case, it definitely helped their causes. But one thing that will not help their causes is that they need to do better in terms of finishing. Like, again, they got 21 shots. That's great, but only 3 of them was on target. And anytime when you have that kind of stats line and that ratio, you know that is a ratio that means that the team that had that problem is probably because of their finishing. And if Nashville was a little bit better in terms of their finishing, they probably could have won this game. But either way, that is pretty much it for the review of these 4 games. And like I said, I did go a little bit too long in terms of review, because usually it doesn't take like 40 minutes for me to talk about these 4 games. But we're at this point where every games I want to take a look carefully, and also these were like I didn't actually watch this one, but I did watch the replay of both of these games, and also the last one between Nashville and Houston, and that's why I kind of got a little bit more detail in terms of talk about some of these games. But in general, it's just that when we talk about playoffs scenario heading into this day, that also factor in terms of the runtime of this video. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 4 games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.